1968. The way people had those types of discussions back then was a lot different. In fact, his dad Bill, he was like, why don't we just whoop them like we supposed to? Like God intended. What up, everybody? It's your boy CB. We're here to review another episode of The Wonder Years. We're here to review episode 3 of The Wonder Years, which is called The Club. Now, the way this episode starts is with Dean reminiscing about some of the parties his parents used to throw back in the day, and how him and his sister were not allowed to participate in the parties at all, but their older brother Bruce, he was able to participate in a minimal fashion when his dad's drink ran dry. And when his drink would run dry, he would call in to Bruce, tell him. Bruce knew what to do with the cubes. He knew what to do with the liquor and bring it on out there. And when the sister would try to come out, they would tell her to go back in the house into her room because she wasn't ready for that type of thing yet, right? And Dean, he didn't really care. Dean was too busy with his baseball cards to care. And that's kind of the way that went. And so they fast forward to 1968. Dean's out in the schoolyard with his buddies. And they still trading baseball cards. Dean is really good at selling the cards that he doesn't want to some of his friends, and getting the cards that he does want from them. In fact, Corey told him that my mom told me not to even trade with you anymore because you told me that Willie Mays' card was ruined by a signature. That's a pretty good move. I think matter of fact, I would say I was impressed by Dean's negotiation skills with the baseball cards, because I used to trade baseball cards. I still do have quite a few baseball cards. And, you know, when you're trading, trying to get the cards you want, you do have to kind of finesse the game. And Dean was pretty good at that. Now you go to the next day, his boys is out in the yard, and they on something else. They're not looking at baseball cards anymore. In fact, one of his friends told him that baseball cards are for boys, and these are for men. And they were looking at nudie magazines. Now, if you gotta remember, this is 1968. Back in those days, a 12-year-old with a nudie magazine, oh my gosh. You were on top of the world. You're not supposed to be looking at this. You know what I mean? Nobody is. This is something serious. It's not the days of 2021 where you can find porn at your fingertips. All you need is a cell phone to get to it. No. You had to dig for it. And that's exactly what Dean does when he goes back home. He starts looking for his pop's porn supply. And it takes him a while. But he finally comes upon a box in the basement that's got all the nudie magazines you could want. It's the black nudie magazines. I can't remember the name. I think it's Sweet Mahogany or something like that. And, hey, he got those magazines to school. He thought he was the man. Everybody like, oh, these the good ones. They go in the bathroom. Your man's passing out again because he was passing out from the original ones. Now he passing out again off these good ones. And somebody comes in the bathroom and is like, let me take a look at what you got. And he's complimenting the magazine. Like, whose magazines are these? Dean's proud, like, yeah, these my magazines. And as soon as he say that, the bell rings. And the guy that came in takes off his jacket. He's a hall monitor. And so he's confiscating all the magazines. And now Dean's in the office. They call his dad, telling him what's going down. The principal's talking about how he's disappointed and everything. And when Dean's dad collects the magazines, Dean's like, it's one more. So the principal was trying to keep one to himself, even though he was telling her that it wasn't any good. And that's pretty much the way it goes, right? The authority figures tell you that they don't want it in the school, even though that's exactly what they want to look at when they get off work. So, this episode's got to do with kids coming to their own. And that's one of the big things is sexuality. When you're growing up, one of the biggest things in your life is your sexuality. Now, I know that the difference these days than it was then is that kids are able to pick freely what their sexuality is. They're able to be, I should say, they are able to be amongst their peers more free with their sexuality. Some of the people in our generation still have problems with certain sexualities, certain choices, or not even choices, certain ways of being. And, that's something that we all need to work on, including myself. I definitely need to work on my understanding of other people's sexuality and how that fits into their life, because that's one of the most important things that we can discover about ourselves. But to get back to the episode, Dean is talking to his dad in the car, and his dad's just like, you know what? We're not going to worry about this. We're not going to tell your mom about it. Let's keep it between us. And he calls him a man. And that makes Dean feel good. That makes Dean feel like he's on another level now, because he imagines himself being in this actual club with his dad, and they take his boy card and burn it, and he gives him a man card. And now he's feeling like he's getting to that point of being a grown man. I'm hanging out with my dad, and it's all good. So he gets home, he's trying to study, and he can't even concentrate because he's so worried about, these things that he's seen. He's seen these things, they made him feel a certain kind of way, and he wants to see some more. So as soon as his dad goes to the store, say he's going to be gone for a while, what does Dean do? He tries to hit the stash again. Only this time, once he hits the stash, his mom catches him. And now he's got to explain to his mom what he's doing down in this stash of magazines. And he does a pretty poor job of explaining, because first thing he does is throw his dad under the bus, which it was supposed to stay between them, right? But he doesn't do that. He spills all the beans to his mom, and now she wants to have a discussion with Dean and his dad. And the dad is not too happy about the whole situation. Again, it's 1968. The way people had those types of discussions back then was a lot different. In fact, his dad, Bill, he was like, why don't we just whoop him like we supposed to? Like God intended. And, that was kind of a joke thrown in there. But that's the way things were actually dealt with back then. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't, any kind of understanding. But Dean's mom is different, Dean's mom is like, no, we're going to talk about this and we're going to get this straight. And Dean was a little embarrassed about being caught with the magazines or being looked at as a pervert. And the first thing his mom told him was, look, I don't want you to feel like this is a dirty thing. I want you to understand that this is a natural thing for you to feel. And let me tell you a couple other things about these magazines. These magazines belong to me. And by her telling him that, his whole world literally turned upside down. He didn't know what to think. And once she explained to him that it was because she missed his dad, because he was out of town, and, the pictures in the magazines reminded her of him, he had a little bit better understanding. And it even got deeper because he asked a question, and so his mom got it, deeper into the discussion. Again, his dad not feeling the conversation at all, but Lillian, being the kind of woman that she is, she went into it, and she explained to Dean what was going on with him. She explained to him about periods, about menstrual cycles, and the whole nine. Now, the problem came in because Dean went directly back to school and started explaining all this stuff to his friends. He was doing a pretty good job, even, because Corey asked him when did they get their periods, and he told her that it was, not a thing for them to get, which is cool. But where he messed up at, the part that his mom told him is that his wife will appreciate him knowing certain things. But what Dean didn't understand was that his wife would appreciate those things at that time, not right now. So what he wanted to do was use his infinite knowledge about women and sexuality in order to impress his crush, who was Keisha. And Keisha comes around, he comes up to Keisha's locker and he's like, hey, guess what I found out? Next thing you know, they both sit in the principal's office, Dean in the principal's office again, and he holding an ice pack over his face because you know Keisha get that mean right hook. She probably done mollywopped him a couple of times. Her parents there, they upset. And then his mom walks in. Dean's mom walks in. And Dean's mom is looking at the situation probably like, you know, why am I even here? These are children talking about their sexuality. It should be a good thing. But her understanding the atmosphere, she really read the room and knew what was going on. She didn't make a big deal out of it. She said she was going to take her son home and have a good talk with him. And when they get out to the car, they had a similar conversation like, you know, Dean and Bill had about how it was going to stay between them. Because Keisha's dad was in that office acting a nut. He was acting like it was the worst possible thing that could ever happen to his daughter. He's telling her to cover her ears up just at the mention of the word pornography. And he was acting like the typical male may have acted during that time when it comes to that subject. But Lillian ignored all that. And she took Dean home and it was all good. And the funny thing that happened was when, you know, they got home, Lillian and Bill were in the basement. They were, you know, looking at something, and Dean was sneaking down in the basement again, trying to see something. Then he found his parents thinking they were looking at the nudies magazines together, but they were actually looking at their wedding pictures and reminiscing about those days. And they ended up throwing another party. And this time, instead of Bruce being the one to go refresh Bill's drink, it was Dean. And he was so proud to do so. And when he asked his sister if she wanted to know what was going on outside, she was like, I don't care, they boring. They adults. Everything they do is boring. And so her attitude had changed about what was going on. Even though Dean was happy to finally, you know, be in the circle of both his mom and his dad and be out there with those drinks. So, again, you know, Wonder Years this time around is pretty good. I like the fact that they're attacking or they're handling, you know, modern issues, but in the frame of, you know, a different time. It really shows that even though that was 50 years ago, that we still deal with those same types of things. You know, I think nowadays the conversation about sexuality is a little bit different, but kids, as they grow up and they mature, they still dealing with that same questionable feeling that they may have. And it's our job as parents to make sure that we give them the best answers in those questions that come up. You know, one thing my wife said when we were watching this was, if the kid is asking a question, then it's time for them to know. You can't make that determination for them. If you don't teach them the right thing, they're going to go out there and find it some other kind of way. So it's best for you to go ahead, have an open, honest conversation with your kids about that, because they're going to find out something one way or another. And hopefully it's not from another kid whose parents were more honest with their kid than you were with yours. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this week's episode. Again, it's coming along quite nicely, if you ask me. I enjoyed it. Hey, what you think? Leave me a comment.